What is up, everyone? Welcome to another Gridiron Battle, episode 2 in this series of, I think we're going to have about 5 of these, Jake. And we got a good one tonight. We got such a good one that we had to have 2 reps from the New York Jets on this show. And I'm going to tell you why real quick. You know, when I heard Anthony on the AFC East Summit Tuesday night saying that the Jets are going to be 14-3 at a minimum, I'm like, what? The Jets haven't had more than a 9-win season in many years. They've only had a 10 games win. I think back in, what was it, 2013, somewhere around there. What was it?
Yeah, probably
It's like
about 20. Oh, no, yeah, the Fitzpatrick year.
2015.
Exactly. They were 10-6, and guess who ruined their playoff run at the end of the year? They lost to the Buffalo Bills. So Anthony wants me to believe a team that's had 7 wins over the last 2 seasons, 4-2, they're going to double. They're going to double this year. And so, DKB, I had to bring you on. You might think the same, but I had to get another perspective because otherwise I know Anthony was going to just say, this is a win for every round. He's going to say, this is a dominant win for the Buffalo Bills. So anyhow, it's going to be a lot of fun. We do this. We score it boxing style, 10-point scoring system. We'll go position group by position group. Each of these guys will have 2 minutes to talk about their perspective position group. And at the end of it, they'll say either they think they won the round, it's a knockdown, or it's a knockout. If they win, it's a 10-9. Knockdowns are 10-8. Knockouts are 10-7. It's the first time we introduced this year, and I think we had one on our Dolphin battle last week. By the way, the Bills and the Dolphins ended in a tie. It was a draw. So I'm interested to see because a lot of people in our Discord community, and by the way, Discord is absolutely free. The link is in the description of the show. Join it. We talk football, we talk baseball, we talk hockey, we talk fantasy football, and even folks that are fans of the Buffalo Bills are saying that they could see the Jets winning this division, Jake, by 2 or 3 games. What are they smoking? I know marijuana is legal now, but my goodness, what is going on here? But anyhow, I want to say hello to Jake Podger, my co-host as always. Also, you can see him on the AFC East Summit as well. Special guest, DKB X Jets. You can go to his channel. By the way, you just go down to our awesome channel list and our show on our channel, and you'll see him. Just push the button, subscribe. He does a lot of great things for the Jets. We've had him on our show a few times. And of course, you got Anthony over there, who just came from the gym. He says, you know what? I had to get pumped up for this one, get fired up. He's on our AFC East Summit. So, guys, are you ready to start this battle here?
For sure.
All right.
Let's go, baby.
So, Jake, first round. Let's go. Let's throw it over ringside here to get this thing started.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Man, I can't wait for this one. Jake, you're up. 2 minutes starts now. We're talking about the defensive line.
All right. Well, I don't want to spoil anything for the people out there watching, but listen, this is going off of paper, right? And to be honest with you, there's going to be a lot of position groups that are going to be tough for me to convince everyone that the Jets aren't mopping the floor with it, right? So defensive line, it's this is a group that the New York Jets, for whatever reason, just draft really heavily in. They draft early in, and they stockpile. Now, while the Bills got a little bit better in the offseason, I feel like with depth, it's hard to say that they hold a candle to this defensive line for the Jets. It is one of their strongest units. And they got a ton of young talent there. And I know Anthony wasn't super big on the Hassan Reddick move, but, I mean, you still got an absolute dog in him. You got Jermaine Johnson. You got Michael Clemens still, who I know he's got his beef with Deion Dawkins. But then you look at the defensive tackles, Javon Kinlaw, Quinnen Williams. I think you guys brought in Solomon Thomas, too.
We've had Solly for a few years, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Will McDonald. Geez, the list goes on. And it's a strong group. And listen, we have Ed Oliver. We have Daquan Jones. Defensive ends are solid in Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa. And then, of course, we have Javon Solomon, who we drafted in the 5th round, who I think we got tremendous value for. But, man, I just think you look across the entirety of the defensive line unit. And while the Bills are really good there, and while it is one of our stronger units, to me, I feel like the Jets have a top 3 defensive line in football. And it's hard to say that they don't have a better unit than the Bills right now. So just being real, I think I'm going to give you guys this one. And I'm going to make this one a 10-9 round because I do think the Bills are really, really good there. And we did get younger. We drafted Dwayne Carter as well, defensive tackle. I think he's going to be really good in this league. He could play 1, 3, or 5 techs. And then we got some good depth too. So I don't think it's a total mopping of the floor, if you will. Like I said, for some other units that I'll probably be talking about in the future here. But let's go 10-9 Jets on this one.
All right, Anthony. He's already given you this. Now you could say, I want you to talk about your team first of all, because this is this show's not only to talk about each position group, but it's to get to share who's on your team, who you have with the folks out there that are going to be watching this show. It's a great way for them to get familiar with your team. So, Anthony, you have 2 minutes to talk about your defensive line. If you agree with Jake, disagree, it's all yours, sir.
I generally completely agree with Jake's take on this. I do see the Jets as having one of the deepest, best defensive lines in football, particularly at pass rusher. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to get out of Javon Kinlaw, but we got a lot out of Quentin Jefferson last year. We got, for when he was healthy, a lot out of Sheldon Rankins. Basically, anybody that lines up opposite Quinnen Williams gets free rushes at the passer, so like their stats wind up going up. At the defensive end, we've got Jermaine Johnson. He hinted at the Hassan Reddick deal. I was not super thrilled with it, if only because I felt that he was basically the exact same player that we lost when we let Bryce Huff walk. And we basically traded him straight up. So I didn't quite understand the purpose of that. I guess it's maybe to clear a runway for Will McDonald further down, maybe past this year. But again, fine. Hassan Reddick's still a very good pass rusher. He's going to work really well in this defense. Tremendous effort. Will McDonald obviously going to be a tremendous pressure player if he winds up succeeding. I think Jermaine Johnson is a descending player. And it's hard to say anything besides the fact that Quinnen Williams is probably the best defensive lineman in this division. Maybe top
in the
5
league.
In the league at his position. So we have an excellent defensive line. It's a very good rotation. It's the strength of the team. It really is a bulwark of this defense along with our secondary. So yeah, I do think it's probably 10-9 because you guys do have a lot of talent in Ed Oliver. You do have some ascending players potentially in Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa. But from what we've seen on the field to this point, I do think we have the advantage decisively. I don't think it's a knockout, but it's certainly, I think, a 10-9 fair.
Uh-oh, Mike, you're on mute.
So that round score is 10-9 for the Jets. Remember, there's a knockdown and there's a knockout. Knockdown's a 10-8 round. So just remember that you guys have that in your back pocket. I also want to mention too, I don't think I've said this. Maybe I did, but I'm old. I forget. But we have another scorecard being done. Over to the left of me is a gentleman from PFF. He likes to remain anonymous. He's also scoring this. Now, the way he scores it is he looks at across all position groups, their average at that group. And he doesn't really take in the depth. He looks at starters only, and he takes the average across that position group, and that's how he scores it. Now, if there's a difference of 10 or more points, that's a knockdown. If there's 20 or more points, for instance, let's say some position group had an average score of 90 and the other one had a 70. 20 or more, that's a knockout. Knockdowns are 10 or more. We don't have a lot of those usually, but you never know in this battle. So just want you guys to know there's another card besides what these folks here are keeping. DKB, first of all, I want to say also hi to everyone out there, Trek reviewer. Nice to see you as always. Big L, great to see you joining us. James Payne saying 14 wins for the Jets. Does that include last season?
Look at this one.
Do you want me to let me clarify that real quick? First off, you said that I thought that was the most likely scenario. That's what I thought was. No, that's not what I said. What I said was I could see them getting 14 wins. 12 wins is probably the most likely scenario.
All right. So the floor was 12, ceiling
I think
14.
floor is 12, ceiling's 14 is probably about right.
All right, because I don't know. For a minute there, I thought you said they were going to go undefeated, but yeah, I stand corrected. My fault.
I don't think I ever said that. But,
I know, Anthony.
Thanks for setting me up. You're getting me killed in the chat. That's all I'm saying.
I love it.
I love it, baby.
Close-
Hey, it's
close
2v1 here. We got to get me something there, right?
But you did say 14 wins is their ceiling. And Trekkerview
I
saying
said I think 14 wins is about the ceiling. Yeah.
must be confusing them with the Winnipeg Jets. Love it. All right,
That's hilarious.
DKB. You're on mute, just to remind you, because I always
Yep,
make that
gotcha.
mistake. But you have 2 minutes to talk about your linebacking crew here. So here we go. This should be a fun one.
Yeah, so I think one of the more underrated position groups on our defense, right? The secondary gets a lot of love for the additional turnovers they got. The defensive line is obviously the apple of New York's eye, but the linebackers are the ones doing a lot of the grinding dirty work, right? And you can argue objectively that we have 2 of the top 10 off-ball linebackers in the league. CJ Mosley, who's making a rejuvenated, career out of himself after some bad injuries, multiple 100-yard seasons under his belt, Pro Bowler. He's bringing a lot of the leadership since he does have some of that athleticism sapped. And then you look at Quincy, kind of the the normal, everyday player that was kind of tossed out by, I think he was with the Jags before we scooped him up. And we've turned him into arguably, again, another top 7 to top 10 player at his position, thumps people, comes down viciously downhill. He's improved his coverage traits quite a bit as well. So when you take a look at the linebacker unit with everything they're asked to do, playing sideline to sideline, all of the blade of grass that they're going to cover, the weakest part of that unit is probably from a coverage standpoint, which can be said of pretty much any linebacker unit. And I think we've minimized it a lot. We've really only had issues with tight ends, slot receivers, people getting split off, detached from the line. We seem to do really, really good with. And then even from a depth perspective, you can say that you're excited about them. We had let, the name is escaping me. We have Jamian Sherwood now as our third rotating in linebacker. He has replaced, and why am I forgetting his name? He went to the Steelers. Either way, we've been able to supplement very, very well down the rotation. He's a guy that can come in. He can own the calls. He's also improving as a player. So overall, I think the arc is going up there.
So what do you suggest in here? Your team wins this round? Knockdown, knockout?
With the turnover that the Bills have, I would give it a knockdown, playing safe.
Ooh.
Knockdown. Ooh, a 10-8 round. Just Jake, he's coming at you with a 10-8. When you say turnover, I mean, DKB, I mean, we have the, Terrell Bernard had a fantastic year last year. Matt Milano was out with injury after, I think it was after the Jaguars game. He's coming back this year. So not a ton of turnover. And we got Dorian Williams returning. We've added a few more folks, but I'll let Jake talk about it because, I'm just the moderator here. So I like to stir up a little bit of trouble. But Jake, let me throw it to you, man.
Like, you are stirring up trouble tonight. You definitely are. Quoting Anthony's trying to, yeah, I love it. Just kidding. This is, it's interesting because our linebackers are almost the total opposite. Where you guys lack in your coverage skills, like both of our starting linebackers are really good and they're super opportunistic. And honestly, had Matt Milano not gone down with an injury last year, a season ender, probably would have been another all-pro season for him. Like, he's that good. Now, the only issue is we don't know what version of Matt Milano we're getting back, right? He tore his ACL and then he did something with his fibula as well, or broken fibula with some knee tendon issues too. It wasn't a torn ACL, my fault. So there's been, people said last year in the playoffs, if the Bills got to the AFC Championship game, he would have came back for it, which I don't buy that because now there's rumors suggesting otherwise, that he may not even be ready for the start of the season. So you just don't know what version of him you're going to get back. Terrell Bernard definitely was the biggest surprise for us. He had a Pro Bowl season himself, didn't get voted to the Pro Bowl, but definitely worthy of it. And I think from a depth standpoint, the Bills are actually better there. We brought in Deion Jones. We also signed Nick Morrow, who, struggles in coverage a little bit, but a tackling machine. He can play. He's basically the Tyrell Dodson replacement for us. That's really the only guy we lost. But I will say this for the Jets. Quincy Williams, man, he's going to be competing with his brother Quinnen, by the way, who plays on the defensive line for all pros here in the future. He just had an all-pro season, and he's only ascending. He's 27 years old. And while CJ Mosley is going to be 32, I think, he's still incredible. Like, he's so gifted. He's such a good tackler. And yeah, he struggles a little bit in coverage here and there, and he gets burned, but he makes up for it in so many other ways. His leadership, obviously tackling ability, reading recognition, he's good with that, man. And he's been the best for years at that. So, this is close for me. I think your starters outdo us by a little bit just because CJ Mosley obviously has the pedigree. Quincy Williams has been ascending for years now. He's done it for 3 consecutive seasons where he's gotten better every year and just had an all-pro year. I think the Bills' depth is better, but I know Mike is going to go to PFF, and he judges it only solely off the starters. So with that being said, I'm not calling this a knockout or a knockdown. I think this is as close to a 10-10 match or 10-10 round as you're going to get. I'm going to say 10-9. Jets, unfortunately. Oh, you got it on mute there, Mike.
No, I know. I saw that. By the way, I want to say that if your time runs out at 2 minutes, give yourself another 15 seconds if you're in the middle talking. I'm not going to stop you cold there.
So I get a little nervous. I see the time and I'm like, oh,
that's good. With the 4 of us, I was rushing to get that on the screen. I'm like, I usually hide it, but I can't hide it this time because I know it is distracting, but it puts some pressure on you, just like the pressure the Bills are going to put on the Jets this year. So 10-9 round for the Jets. All right.
Oh, it kills me, man. 2 10-9 rounds here. Oof.
Let me tell you
Not
something,
looking great.
Jay. You better talk to these guys in the corner, man. I don't, between rounds, we got to do something here.
Bread and butter's the offense is coming.
I know, man.
Back-to-back rounds. Oh my goodness. All right, we're gonna go to corners, and this time, let's see here. Who did I have start last time? Did I have you, Jake, or did I have DKB?
Yeah, Jake start. You can have me start if you like.
I'm gonna have Anthony start on the cornerback situation. Anthony, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, start off just saying Sauce Gardner. I don't think it's crazy to say that he's the best corner in football. I think that if you say he's anything worse than the 3rd best corner in football, you probably don't watch too much football. It's just a phenomenal place to begin. After that, you've got the obvious DJ Reed, who I'm not sure if he got All-Pro or Pro Bowl votes last year. I would say in our scheme, the way he gets to play, he is likely close to top 10, top 15 corner. So you've got the number 1 corner in football on one side, a top 10, top 15 corner on the other side, and then Michael Carter, who is another one of the top 5-ish, maybe top 10-ish nickel corners in football. This is a deep group that has guys like Brandon Eccles, that has guys like Bernard Jarek Converse. And it's interesting that we're only talking about cornerbacks so that we go ahead and do safeties. I would prefer if we did the entire secondary. Seems like it would be more contingent with it. But if we're strictly focusing on cornerbacks, I don't know how you could go anywhere but this being a knockout. This is our best position group, in my opinion. Top-end talent, depth talent. And I think that it's actually, at this point, one of the weaker parts of the Bills' defense as well. I know you guys have Christian Benford. I know you guys have Rasul Douglas. Those guys are fine. They're good
corner in the game, Taron Johnson. Come on now.
That's right, baby. Everyone forgets about him. It's okay.
It's all right.
The radar. He got paid.
It's a decent group for sure. But the top end talent on our team, I think, just scores as well above. So I would actually consider this one to be a knockout.
Jake, knockout. Oh my goodness, buddy. If you've learned anything on these battles, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to throw it to you. Here we go.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Unfortunately, I feel like this entire show, I'm going to be trying to convince these guys that it's not a knockout or a TKO. I'm just trying to fight for points here because it is. I mean, this is maybe your best unit, like Anthony said. I mean, your defensive line is really good, right? You maybe have the best defensive tackle in Quinton Williams. And then, oh, by the way, you have the best corner in Sauce Gardner. So it's hard to compete with that, right? And I think while the Bills have a decent cornerback room, if they're not healthy there, I mean, some of the depth pieces that we have, they've started games, and Kyer Elam, we don't know what version of him we're going to get. His rookie year, he had some really good moments, but last year he was lost. And I know he had a foot injury in the preseason. And I'm hoping he actually turns out to be like Jimmy Smith, the former corner for the Ravens. That's sort of who I comped him to, just because he had a slow start to his career too. But then year 3 sort of took off, learned the defense better. We got a new defensive backs coach, and Jaleel Adai. So I'm encouraged by that. But, I think you look at the starters in general, right? Sauce Gardner versus Rasul Douglas. While Rasul Douglas just had a phenomenal year, Sauce Gardner is the best corner in football, right? Then you match up the number 2 corners, right? DJ Reed versus Christian Benford. And again, DJ Reed, one of the better, more underrated corners in football, I think. He's not getting enough credit because he plays alongside Sauce Gardner. Christian Benford's a very solid player, but they're not in the same category, in my opinion. Now, I do think we have a better nickel corner in Taron Johnson. Taron Johnson, in my opinion, is a top 2 nickel corner in football right now, and he got paid like such. So that's the only spot we're really winning here. I don't know if that's going to save us from a 10-8 round here, though, unfortunately. I just feel like this is such a strong unit for you guys. I'm going to call this 10-8 Jets.
All right. So Anthony called for the knockout, which would have been 10-7. But again, if you're saying you're conceding a 10-8, it's a 10-8 round. Hold on a sec, because PFF, the gentleman over there, has something to tell.
You guys got Al Blades Jr. too? Love that.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you, the PFF said to tell you guys, this is a lot closer than you guys thought. He's like, I don't know what's going on right now on this show, but that's all I'm going to say.
Or are we talking about in general, all the groups we rated, or just the cornerbacks?
Well, he was specifically talking about corners right now.
Oh, he's wild.
But he's like,
those corners, they did for the Bills. I know they got very strong PFF scores. I could definitely say that. So that's why they're probably close here.
Wow. All right. Let's see here.
Love it. I love it.
We're going to safeties, and we're going to start with DK. You like DK or DKB? How should I refer to you, sir?
DK works.
DK. All right, DK.
Metcalf.
I mean, Jake, cut the eye, man. Cut the eye in the corner. We got to do something big time to get these guys fired up. All right, DK. Talk to us. You have 2 minutes. Talk about
so this one's
safeties.
This one's tough, right? So safety is definitely our weakest group in that defense. I do think they're underrated, right? You're talking about a group that consists of a starting undrafted free agent in Tony Adams, who has improved to a level that I think is at least league average to above, right? He's been able to go and get some turnovers. He's been key in critical games like us locking down the Eagles, us trying to make comeback efforts versus the Chiefs. So I think he is a player that's going to ascend and be able to at least reach a Pro Bowl level. Then you look across from him, we're replacing Jordan Whitehead with Chuck Clark, who had a strong season. Even if you factor out of the Bills game, week 1, where he went absolutely nuts and, snagged himself 3 interceptions. Outside of that, he's been strong as just a guy that's going to come in and try to make game-changing plays as a hard hitter. I don't necessarily love his tackling or coverage ability per se, but he's improved in that effort.
Okay. Are you referring to Jordan
He's talking
Whitehead?
about Jordan. I was going to say the same thing. I don't want to.
Jordan White. You were talking about Chuck Clark, but that was Jordan Whitehead with the 3 interceptions.
Jordan Whitehead. Sorry,
I remember. Trust me.
Chuck Clark missed the year with a season-ending injury.
Yeah, my bad. Jordan Whitehead is what I was referring to. So, factoring in his recent season, which I think everybody would say went better than his.
But Whitehead's gone now. Whitehead went back to Tampa.
Yeah. So Chuck Clark, thinking about him, a lot of people would have said that he was a better replacement to Jordan Whitehead last year before he went down during OTAs. So we're bringing him back. We don't know what he's going to look like, but he's always been at worst a league average safety. So I feel comfortable there. Comparing them to the Bills safety group, I think you guys are coming in more athletic, and I like what Sean McDermott does a lot with his safeties. Having Matt Milano and them in front of him, I think will help out quite a bit. You guys stole Cole Bishop, who I wanted a lot. So that's the name I'm most familiar with out of that group, outside of obviously like Hamlin and Taylor Rapp. But I think you guys will probably edge us out in this category, if I'm being honest.
All righty. Wow, Jake.
Yeah.
Man, whatever you did, cutting the eye,
serve it
whatever,
on a platter.
Certainly help. But yeah, talk about our safeties. You got 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You're on the clock, sir.
Yeah, Anthony and we talked a little bit before the show, just specifically about what position groups the Bills may have a slight edge at, and safety was one of them that came up. And Anthony asked why we split these two groups up, and didn't just call it a full secondary between corners and safeties. Well, this is why. The Bills need some points here, okay? So this is a Buffalo Bills show after all. And, while we try not to be too biased, got to get points where you can. So I like what you did say about Chuck Clark. I mean, he had a Pro Bowl season in 2022 for the Ravens. Like, he had some serious promise. At 27 years old, he got traded to the Jets, and then he goes down with an injury. It was like July last year, I want to say, right before the season starts. And that was gut-wrenching. And, of course, you have Jordan Whitehead in game 1 having 3 interceptions, finishes with 4 on the year for you guys, was a solid player. But I do think the players themselves, like Chuck Clark versus Jordan Whitehead, if you're talking to me prior to last season, I'd say it's a massive upgrade. But right now, you don't know what version you're going to get. This is kind of like the Matt Milano thing that I was talking about earlier. The Bills, this is a group that, it's going to look a lot different this year. We lost Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. And Micah Hyde, I'm not going to say he's totally gone, because there's been some rumors that he may be coming back in some sort of facet, whether it's a coach for the Bills or a mid-season signing. Hopefully that's not the case, because that probably means there's an injury. But I love Cole Bishop, man. He's going to be Harrison Smith 2.0. He is insane. IQ is through the roof. He brings a ton of ability to play either strong safety or free safety. He can even play a little bit of nickel. So I love what this kid brings to the table. He will be an all-pro Pro Bowl player at the next level here. So I'm really excited for it. And you make a good point too. I love what you said about Sean McDermott and the way he's able to coach up these safeties and the secondary in general. So I'm definitely encouraged. I think Taylor Rapp will see a return to what he was in LA. It took him a year to learn the defense, and he was just a role player with us, mainly only playing in like those dime packages, and he'd be rotated in and out sometimes with Jordan Poyer. So I like what we did at the safety group here, even though we lost our veteran leadership there. But I'm going to say, based on that, I'm going to go 10-9 Bills here.
All right. First round, the Bills win.
I know that it's closed and stuff, but I do want to bring up a name that didn't come up for some reason: Ashton Davis.
Freak athlete.
Second half of last year started to play a lot of snaps for the defense and started to actually look like a guy. And I don't think they would have brought him back if they didn't think that they could finally find a role for him. Took him a couple of years to get on the field, but yeah, like you said, absolute freak athlete. And finally, I mean, I think he forced a fumble late in the season, got a couple of interceptions. Like, he looked like he was going to be a guy. So he's somebody that we could watch. I know we're waiting to see what we get in Chuck Clark, but it might be the Ashton Davis show sooner than later.
All righty. Well, Mr. Podger, let's see if we can keep the momentum rolling here. We switch over to the offensive side of things, and we
Do we call that round 10-8 or 10-9?
10-9.
10-9.
All right. You didn't call
Scratch those 10-8s.
I mean, DK only gave us a 10-9, so even if you would have said
okay, I forgot what he called. Okay,
yeah,
Slow and steady wins the race.
I think that's right, though. I do think that's right. Yeah, that's right.
All right, Jake. So you are on the clock to talk about our offensive line and just how they're going to protect Josh Allen enough against this good defense here to steal the division from them. So talk to us about that O-line.
Yeah, I mean, we had a top 5 offensive line last year, but this year we have some question marks. We moved Connor McGovern to center. We lose Mitch Morse, the quarterback of the offensive line, who played so well for us for many years, was a Pro Bowler with us. So that's a tough loss, and you're not going to replace a guy like that. And then you have a guy who played a little bit of center in college, and I think he had to at one point in Dallas a little bit. But he just had his best year as a pro at the left guard position, and now you're moving him to center. And we drafted a guy in Cedric Van Pran Granger in the 5th round, who I think is a day one starter in the NFL. I think he has a ton of upside there, and I really would be surprised if he doesn't eventually take that starting center role, and then we move Connor McGovern back to left guard. But right now, as it stands, David Edwards is going to be our left guard, and then our center is going to be Connor McGovern. So with that being said, it's hard to rate this unit over the Jets, especially when they drafted Olu. They signed Tyron Smith, who, by the way, he's going to be a Hall of Fame tackle. I know he has a hard time staying healthy, but when he is, he just had a really good season this past year, and he was pretty healthy for most of the year. So even though he's a little bit up there in age, he's still a really good tackle, and he's mentoring Olu, who's an absolute freak of nature. And if he does go down, you got Olu, who you just plug and play. You guys signed John Simpson. You got Joe Tittman, who I really like at center. Elijah Vera Tucker, obviously. And then you signed Morgan Moses, who's a very good, serviceable right tackle. Now, the Bills, we have some really good promise in Osiris Torrance. He played every single snap of the year as a rookie, so I love that. Spencer Brown had a really good year, but he just had surgery this offseason again, too, which concerns me a little bit. Deion Dawkins, his best year as a pro, in my opinion. This is really close, but I think when you look at some of the names on that Jets offensive line, it's hard not to rank them over the Bills, especially because they took Olu in the first round. So tackles get paid, man. Tackles are what make your team, right? So to me, I think you guys have a better unit there, and that's why I'm going to give the Jets this one. I'm going to call it 10-9 Jets.
Well, a completely different story than last year, which O-line was, even though Anthony went into the season saying that O-line was stellar, they really weren't.
Again, Mike, you'd always put words in my mouth. You're driving me nuts here, man. Last year, I was like, we're going to be like a top maybe 15 to 20 line, and like now all of a sudden I'm saying
I'm gonna bring
they have the upside of 14
film.
wins. They're going to be undefeated.
I'm gonna bring the film up and we'll replay it. So go watch your film. Let's go. So I think who's next here? Who talked about the last position? I think it's Anthony's turn, right?
Yeah.
Talk O-line. Yeah. All right, sir. 2 minutes are yours.
Cool. All right. Wow, Mike decided to go completely fuzzy. Great. So we're making this audio.
All right.
Our offensive line, a lot of like what Jake said. If we're just going by their names, this is a 10-8 round. We're not, though. Tyron Smith, John Simpson, Morgan Moses, and Elijah Vera Tucker. Well, Elijah was here last year, but like he only played like 4 or 5 games for us. He's got injury problems. Tyron Smith has injury problems. Morgan Moses is old. This offensive line, once it hits its stride, which I think is going to happen sometime in the second half of the season, I think is going to be special if it stays relatively healthy. That said, this is going to be a 10-9 round. And the reason it's a 10-9 round is the Bills managed to keep most of their offensive line intact, and that was an offensive line that spent most of the year entirely healthy. These are 2 very good offensive lines for completely different reasons. The Jets, because they have extremely talented offensive linemen. The Bills, because the continuity is there. Functionally, I think these 2 offensive lines are 2 of the better put together groups in the league. I do think the Jets are better, and I think at their peak, the Jets offensive line could be one of the best in the league. But I do think this is a 10-9 round. Like Jake was referring to, we did draft Olu Fashanu, who is a hell of a swing tackle, let's be honest. Besides that, we do have depth in the interior. We do have guys that played a lot of snaps last year. Max Mitchell, Wes Schweitzer, Xavier Newman. These are guys that like got forced to be starting last year, and it's kind of valuable. Carter Warren. It's kind of valuable to have guys that have starting snaps in the NFL for the same offensive line coach on the same offensive line. So I actually am very hopeful about the offensive line this year. I think that this team will be able to run the ball in a way that they couldn't in the past, and that's going to open up the passing game a lot more than it did in the recently. I do think this is a 10-9 round.
All right, fair assessment there.
Getting beat up, Mike. Getting beat up.
Really, I mean, both eyes are now swollen, Jake. I hope one of the keys to winning a fight is having a good cut man in your corner. I certainly hope you got a good cut man. I don't know who. I mean, did you call out to Keith? He's out there in Philly. Maybe he knows a good cut man because obviously Rocky fought out there. So hopefully you got a good cut guy in your corner. But we're gonna move on to the tight ends. And DK, you're gonna start us off on the tight end room. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So starting off with the Bills on this side, I think they probably have one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL with the tight end group, right? Dalton Kincaid is insane as a guy that's essentially just a gigantic wide receiver that can go out there and run routes against anybody, right? And we've seen him get featured more as the season went on there. I know he killed it for fantasy for me, so appreciate you guys. And then Dawson Knox was talked about as like a top 10 tight end prior to Dalton Kincaid coming, and I think he's had a few nicks and bruises that have kind of taken away from him staying on the field as often, but he was vastly underrated and was looked at as one of the top guys, 2022 heading into 2023. So I still put a lot of stock into what I've seen out of Knox. I like Dalton Kincaid. He seems like he's on the rise. For the Jets, I think we just have an underrated group. We don't really know what they are. We've been terrible at using our weapons, for one, right? But you look at Tyler Conklin. He's had arguably top 10 tight end seasons for the last couple years. Okay. He's had arguably top 10 seasons for the last couple years. Jeremy Rucker was a guy I really, really like as kind of a do-it-all tight end. And so we're finally getting to the point where we can see Aaron Rodgers with these guys, right? And okay, they must have just finished dinner.
Family having a little fun out there.
You guys are having a great time over there, huh?
It's all good. It's still early here around the West Coast.
Yeah, Jeremy Rucker, we don't really know what he'll be, right? So I think the Bills do have the edge here from a depth perspective, and then what they can do with their tight ends. I think our top guys are kind of on the same level. But I would defer to the Bills on this end just because we don't know. Is Aaron Rodgers still a top quarterback? How is he going to play with those guys? There's a lot more question marks than anything else, but I would just say we've seen big performances with the worst quarterback in the NFL throwing them the ball. So it's close. It's close. I would go 10-9 Bills, though.
10-9. All right. Mr. Podger, next up, sir.
Yeah, you made a good point about Ty Conklin. I mean, this dude caught 61 passes for 600-something yards last year. Like, sneaky good. Actually, I played him in fantasy a few times just because he was a good option. Like, that hasn't been a thing for the Jets probably since Dustin Keller, maybe? Like, yeah. And before that, I don't know. It wasn't Anthony Beck. It wasn't Kyle Brady. I mean, we're going way back. So, yeah, I think you guys are solid there, but doesn't matter. Anthony's not a big tight ends guy, and the Jets really never have focused on the tight end position. This is where the Bills will pick up some points for me, though, just because Dalton Kincaid, so much promise in this kid, caught 73 passes as a rookie. I honestly think he's going to catch 100 balls this year. 100 for 1,300. I'm putting it out there right now. I think he's going to be unbelievable. He will be the focal point of this offense. I know Anthony's laughing, but I believe in this kid. He's so fluid. He's so fun to watch. It's like watching an orchestra when he plays football. It's just beautiful. It warms my soul. Dawson Knox, former Pro Bowl tight end, going to be healthy hopefully this year. He can play too. I mean, he's a big play guy. He'll drop some easy passes here and there, but he'll make some incredible plays at the same time. So, you know, he brings a lot of juice to this offense, and I'm really excited to see how Joe Brady utilizes them. I know you're I know, Ant. Listen, I'm trying to get my points here. This is the
No, it's not that. It's 10-5 round.
Well, you know,
I wish we could score it that way, James.
I'm going to call it. I am going to call this a 10-8 round just because of the amount of depth we have at the position. When you have Dawson Knox as your backup tight end, essentially, and then also Quentin Morris, who's a really good athlete himself who can catch passes, you could use him as like an H-back. And there's times where we'll run 13 personnel. We'll run 3 tight ends on the field. It's exciting to me. And by the way, we got a fullback that can also play a little tight end. He's kind of like Mike Sellers, Reggie Gilliam. Are you kidding me? The sledgehammer himself? So this unit, to me, I have 0 question marks at. And besides quarterback, this is one of the most confident. I guess I feel the most confident about this position group out of all of them on the Buffalo Bills outside of quarterback. So 10-8. I'm calling it 10-8, right, baby.
Well, the way this works is DK has to agree to that 10-8. He's already surrendered around. He said a 10-9, but he has to agree to that 10-8 based on what you said, or else we have to score it at 10-9. And James, like I already said, I wish, you know, the lowest we can go is a 10-7 round on the knockout. I wish we go 10-5 because right now Jake's eyes are beaten and battered. But DK, your call, sir.
Yeah. I think ultimately it's just too many unknowns for the Jets. I do really like our guys. I think the tight end ones may be on the same level if Aaron Rodgers is playing the way he's accustomed to playing. But we don't really use too many of the guys after that. So I'll concede the 10-8.
Woo!
All right.
DK,
Jake,
don't
nice.
pity me. Don't pity me, but I appreciate that.
There's no pity. Legitimately, that offense.
All right. Hey, you didn't mention though one of Mike's favorite draft crushes of all time, and Zach Kuntz. That kid's a freak of nature.
I was going to ask
Old
about
Dominion,
him.
7th round pick.
Hey.
You guys high on him? You think he gets any playing time this year? What's the deal with him?
He stood out early in OTAs, but I'm not big on putting any stock in the guys that haven't done anything in any real games. So we'll see how preseason goes for me personally.
Fair.
Kuntz, like out of college, his tape was like Old Dominion would just throw him the ball 27 times.
Yeah.
And Utah did that with Dalton Kincaid at a much higher level, obviously. The thing about Kincaid that does need to get talked about is like good hands are a superpower, and that dude has them. So like Kincaid does have that ability to just catch absolutely everything around him, and he's been targeted enough in college that that he can keep those targets up. So I definitely think you guys win that one, but I just don't think it matters. I don't think tight ends make that big difference.
Yeah. I want to say, so Zach Kuntz, 6'7", has a 40-inch vertical for a tight end. 40-inch vertical. And he was
there's a reason he played Old Dominion and not Alabama.
Yeah, and he was on Bruce Feldman's freak list.
He had the second best RAS score in the last like 50-something years or whatever.
I mean,
I think he had a flat 10.
Yeah.
Like he had the highest one. It was ridiculous. He was above, but like all these tight ends are getting like high 9s these days. Like all of them that are relatively athletic are training for it. And like we'll get into draft stuff another time when the Jets are out of contention. That's when I start doing draft prep. But
all right. Well, Jake fires a couple big shots there in the tight end to get this Bills team back in the game.
Cauliflower ears.
Yeah. So, Jake, you are going to start the battle for the wide receiver room. I want to see what Trek Review is saying here real quick. I am calling it in training camp. Quinnen Williams is going to pull, and I can't even say this guy's
NM Kapali or NM Kapali. Yes.
Him and Geno Smith. And then we took him from you guys.
And Mel.
Yeah, no, you didn't take it. Rex Ryan did. Let's be clear. And it was for the
Rex Ryan. You're right. Yes, he liked his toughness and grittiness.
And then you thought it was really funny to send him out for the coin toss.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
don't
memories,
you miss
baby.
Those Rex Ryan days? I bet you do.
Oh, yeah. Great stories,
Jake,
though.
You are on the clock by the wide receiver room, and I'm looking over at Mr. PFF again. Remains anonymous. He likes what's going on here in the last couple rounds. So start us off with the wide receivers.
Talk about an upgrade for you guys. And I know Mike Williams is injury prone and whatnot, but if you get him as a healthy wide receiver, he's a wide receiver 1 tier for me. Like he's unbelievable. He's a 50-50 ball guy. He'll go up and make those tough catches. Like it's going to be something special if he can stay healthy this year for you guys. Garrett Wilson is quarterback proof. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the football. He's only going to excel more with A-Rod throwing him the ball, and it's so scary to think about. Malachi Corley was one of my favorite receivers in this draft class, and it wasn't what the Bills exactly needed, but he's a day one starter at the slot receiver position, and he'll make an impact for you guys. So I really like what you did there. You look at some of your backups here. Alan Lazard still on the team. Jason Brownlee, who I thought was starting to come up a little bit for you guys last year. Xavier Gibson, who was the Bills' killer in that opening game, taking the punt back for a tud. It's solid. And I think one of the strongest receiving cores in football. Of course, this is barring whether or not Mike Williams can stay healthy. Then you look at the flip side, the Buffalo Bills, which this room we lost Stephon Diggs, we lost Gabe Davis. And right now, we drafted Keon Coleman. He's going to be our presumably our starting X receiver. Then we got Curtis Samuel, who I really like. I think Curtis Samuel is going to be special in this offense. I mean, you can run him out of the backfield, a lot of pre-snap motion with him. Definitely exciting. He had his best year as a pro under Joe Brady in Carolina back in 2020. And by the way, he's only 27, so he's not like old per se. I think he's right at that moment where he can maybe peak, which is good. Khalil Shakir, I saw obviously a ton of potential from this kid. But the real question marks I mean, outside of those question marks are behind them. You got a bunch of other guys that are maybe qualifying as wide receiver 4s, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Chase Claypool, Mac Hollins, Justin Shorter, KJ Hamler, Andy Isabella. A lot of household names for you there, right? So I will say I've heard really good things about Chase Claypool in camp. And obviously, I think when he came into the league to start off, he was looking like a really good player. He had 800 yards 2 years in a row with the Steelers, 9 tuds his rookie year. If he could return to form, that would be great. But this receiver room is so muddied right now. I just don't know who's going to be on the squad at the end of the day here. So yeah, I think you guys are taking this one. I hate to call this a 10-7, but I might have to call this 10-7. I know.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
Yeah.
Just a lot to prove here. A lot to prove in our room.
I'm talking to the PFF guy. He's like, what is this guy saying? Is he a Bills fan or is he's a Bills fan?
You guys got 2 wide receiver 1s, and then you got the stud rookie. Yeah, I know.
I heard a lot of ifs in there. A lot of ifs. If Aaron Rodgers is playing, if Mike Williams stays healthy. A lot of
this
ifs.
is just on paper right now, too, remember.
If Chase Claypool goes back to what he used to be.
I'm not worried about Chase.
Yeah.
I'm not
great when you have to talk about that.
If Chase, but to me, he shouldn't even been in that conversation. But let's go, Anthony. He's giving you a knockout. So he's giving you gimme. Are you gonna agree with that? Or are you gonna, say nah, Jake? We'll give you 10-8.
I do think it's a 10-8. I don't think it's a knockout. And I'm gonna give you the following reasons. One, like you said, Keon Coleman was a hefty investment by you guys. Now, the issues with him stem with simply he just didn't have the target share that you're looking for at a number 1 wide receiver, but he's got great hands. So maybe you can coach him into something being closer to maybe 100 target type receiver. That would be sweet. Curtis Samuel is probably like an 800-yard wide receiver. Khalil Shakir is potentially a decent, maybe outside receiver, definite slot receiver. So you guys have some weapons in there. The way that I see this offense playing, you're not going to be using your wide receivers as much. I think that it's going to be a lot of underneath stuff. I think you're going to be using the tight ends a little bit. I think you're going to be throwing the ball out of the backfield. I think you're going to be trying to get the ball out of Josh Allen's hands really fast. And I think that some of the crazier guys, the Marquez Valdez-Scantlings, the Chase Claypools, the Andy Isabellas, are just going to be your just go long, take the top off the defense, and just try to lighten the box. So, I don't really consider those guys to be part of your wide receiving core. It's definitely a 10-8 round. I think Mike Williams is a phenomenal receiver. I think going from Allen Lazard wide receiver 2 to Allen Lazard wide receiver 4, I think a second year of Brownlee, a second year of Gibson on top of the addition of Malachi Corley plus in ascending Garrett Wilson makes for a very tempting, very delicious wide receiving core, which is something I can't say the Jets have had since Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall in that Fitzmagic season that we had. It's the best group that we've had since then, and the best homegrown group that we've had since, honestly, Keyshawn and Corbett. It's been a long time since we invested in wide receivers. I don't think we had Santana and Lavernius at the same time. So
no, Santana and Jericho Cotchery. No, I mean,
Cotchery and them. Yeah,
Cotchery was a good number 3, and they should have never let him go. But
yeah,
he was a good number 3.
A 10-8 round. Wow.
All right, we'll take it. 10-8, baby. Thanks for talking me off a cliff.
Sounds like a little queen there. 10. I'm hearing it.
But,
James this is the first, I think, round that he's kind of agreed. He's conceded a 10-8 to you guys in the wide receiver class. By the way, I always forget to say this if you're new to the channel. James, I haven't seen you before. Maybe you've been on before. But thanks for joining us tonight, as well as everyone else that's out there. Please give the show a like. It goes a long way to helping us out. And if you like what you're seeing, drop a nickel on that subscribe button is what we always say. And again, we got the DK over here. He's got his own channel as well for the Jets. Go check him out as well. Good stuff over there. Anthony still building his channel. Should see that in the next 6 months to a year, Anthony?
I keep saying it. I not put the investment into it that I need to. But yeah,
it's a lot. It's a lot of work. We know. So I hear
yes.
you. All right, here. So running back class, DK, you get to start us off here, and you are on the clock, sir.
Yeah, if there's any position group on this offense that I'm most excited about, it's the running back. There's the consistent beast that we have in Breece Hall out there, and I think nobody would argue that at worst he's a top 3 back in the NFL, right? Between his running game, being able to put his shoulder down, being able to run away from people, the elusiveness that he brings. Somehow Nathaniel Hackett didn't know he could catch balls effectively until like halfway through the season. And he still tore it up then. And you're talking about him being a further year removed from his ACL tear. So he's coming back stronger, meaning with a better supporting cast around him. I love what we've done behind him. I think running back's one of those positions you can get away with being youthful at. So you're bringing in a 20-year-old demon in Braylon Allen, who's ready to, try to become Derrick Henry light, if you will. And behind him, we're bringing in actually my favorite player out of the two in Isaiah Davis, who's been known to put up monster seasons between high school and college, where you're talking about him going over 2,000 plus yards. Between those two, ironically enough, he's the more ferocious guy that's going to run over you and punch you in the mouth. So I love the mentality that we have there. Even when you go down to our fourth guy, Israel Bandikanda, he matches Breece Hall's explosiveness as much as anybody else you can find in the NFL. So he's always tuned to rip off a huge play here and there too. For the Bills side of things, I'm just interested in how those plays out. I have a lot of respect for James Cook and the season he's been able to put up. I think he's really only capped by how much Josh Allen has to also play running back there. It's rare that you see a quarterback have to consistently put up 100+ carries. And I know he has a little bit of a fumbling problem, but like he's insane as well. You can argue he's a top 10 back in the NFL. Behind him, I just don't trust things as much. And I know the Jets kind of have an unproven feel with it being a lot of rookies, but Ty Johnson is really going to be the only other name, right? And he's more of a special teams, third down type specialist. Obviously, we have a lot of familiarity with them, but just the overwhelming presence of Breece Hall, I would give it to us 10-9.
10-9. All right. I want to say hi to, I love this name here. Bills Mafiosu. All right. It says Jets must TV is just going to be like Dolphins must see TV. Beginning of season, once injuries rack up, it's going to be the same. Bills on top.
Oh, baby.
Got something to say about that as well at the end.
I don't
here.
hate relying on injuries though. That's I don't love relying on injuries, I should say. Yes.
I know. And you have to be talking about this as if you're not going to have any, right? You can't predict injuries. You got to go into this being positive, and these guys are going to be playing. But Jake, what do you got to say? So he's saying 10-9 round for the Jets in the running back room. And what do you got to say about the running backs on the Bills?
Yeah, I think that's right. And actually, I was kind of expecting a 10-8 call from DK, so I appreciate that. You did miss a name in there. So Ray Davis. I really like this kid. He was drafted in the 4th round by us out of Kentucky. And this dude played at, I think, 3 different colleges. And everywhere he went, he produced. He scored a ton of touchdowns. He's going to be a touchdown vulture for James Cook. You get inside the 5-yard line, you may see less of Josh Allen and more of Ray Davis. So he is essentially maybe a younger, probably not as big, but a younger Latavius Murray type, where he's got a nice combo of speed and power. Definitely not. He doesn't have the same physicality, like size-wise or anything like that. But I really like what this kid brings to the table, especially as a pass catcher too. James Cook, 1,122 yards this past year, can catch the football. Did drop some crucial ones too, and I think he's only going to get better with time. I love James Cook's upside because his usage at Georgia wasn't super high, and we don't have that much wear and tear as a running back. Obviously, you expect it to lead to a prolonged NFL career, so that's definitely encouraging. But you guys got a machine in Breece Hall, man. And I think he's so special. He caught 76 passes for you guys. He was like 6 yards away from 1,000 yards. You haven't even unleashed half of his potential, which is scary. Then you look at who you guys got backing him up. You drafted Braylon Allen in the 4th round. You got Isaiah Bandikanda, who's fast as hell, had very productive seasons at Pitt. You got to let him play a little bit more, in my opinion. I don't know why he didn't see the field that much last year. It just didn't make sense to me. And then Isaiah Davis, who, yeah, I mean, you said it, DK. This dude he had 2,000 yards this past year at South Dakota State. I mean, just put up insane stats. So yeah, you guys have a really strong room there. And while the Bills have some nice pieces, I think your guys' depth is just better. So I'm going to call it 10-9 Jets as well.
All right. All right, we are going into the 9th round. 2 more rounds to go. Jake, I mean, just the feeling out here, just as a fan, is you better be talking to your team that they got to get the knockout. You got to go for the knockout here. And this is maybe a round to do it. And this is going to be interesting because I know Aaron Rodgers is one of your favorite all-time quarterbacks. You love the guy, but the guy who trumps him is the current Bills quarterback, Josh Allen. So this is going to be fun. You get to start us off. I think it's just perfect that you get to talk about the quarterback room first. This is an interesting one. I've been excited to hear about this all day. So, Jake, 2 minutes. The floor is all yours.
Man. Yeah, this is really tough because you got Aaron Rodgers, who, in my opinion, is probably the 4th best quarterback of all time, maybe. Remove all the personal crap and all the other stuff you see. I know people think he's nuts and he's a wacko, but he's a hell of a football player. The problem is this dude's coming off an Achilles tear. But does it worry me? I don't really know. I think he's still going to put up insane numbers for you guys. You put him behind a good offensive line there. You gave him a ton of weapons. So he's going to have a special season for you. I know my dad at first jokingly said, will he even make it out of the first game? We had a good conversation on the AFC East Summit show last week where we talked about whether he was truly committed. A 41-year-old does not come back and rehab and do the things he has to do and not have bought all in. Like, I just feel like he is either in or he's out. Like, he was mulling retirement in Green Bay even. So I don't think there's any question he wants to play ball. He's on like that Tom Brady level of craziness. Like, that's just him. We have a crazy guy too in Josh Allen who smiles when he's getting his head taken off and he loves getting hit. He needs to get hit to get in the game, which is psychotic, but I love it. The dude's gritty as hell and he does it with a smile on his face. So, top 2 quarterback in the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, I still think is probably top 10 worthy. It's just hard to tell what version you're going to get of him, but I'm not too worried for you guys. I think you guys heavily upgraded at that position over Zach Wilson. This is no disrespect to the MILF Hunter himself, but man, it's hard to call this a knockdown, even though Josh he's that dude. Can we go 10 to 8.5? Is that possible? Because that's kind of where I want to be on this one.
There's no 10, 8.5. There's no half points in boxing, my friend.
Should we leave this up to the battle of the backups? Because we got Mitchell Trubisky versus Tyrod Taylor, which is interesting in itself. We got 2 former starting quarterbacks here. Tyrod Taylor did a lot of great things here in Buffalo, was the quarterback when we broke the drought. So I got a lot of love for Tyrod.
Should have beat us last year. He's playing for the Giants.
Beat us last year with the New York Giants. So I think Tyrod may have an upper edge there over Mitchell. Let's call this one 10-9. 10-9 Bills. Yeah.
PFF over here. I know PFF. PFF says, look, okay, I'll talk about it after. This guy is going crazy over here, Jake. 10-9.
Quarterbacks can play a lot longer this day and age. They're just,
he's not on the TB12 workout program. I guarantee you that.
He's on the ayahuasca workout.
Right. He's on the decline. His body's breaking down. Brady's body broke down early in his career, and it just ascended as he went in, further and further.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Rodgers' body's breaking down. But hey, 10-9, you give it to him. I think it's Anthony. You have the chance here.
10-9 Bills, by the way, Mike. It's not 10-9.
I know. Yes. I got that. Okay. 10-9 Bills. Anthony, you're next.
I mean, the most difficult thing about debating Jake is that he and I tend to see things in pretty much the same way. This is very much 10-9 round. Now, I've talked about in the past on this show and on the AFC show that I do think Josh Allen is a Hall of Fame quarterback in his prime. And Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback at the tail end of his career. Now, we've seen that quarterbacks at his level that attain that level in the NFL are able to hold on longer, partly because the physicality of the game is a little bit different than it used to be, partly because these guys don't just go to after the game. They're not smoking cigarettes at halftime. They're not just drinking after the game. They're not partying on. These guys take care of themselves in a way that they didn't before. The diets are better. The recovery is better. The training staff is better. The off-season conditioning is better. These guys are athletes all year round. Aaron Rodgers is that level of psychotic that the drop-off that he's had in his ability to throw the ball, to get away from pass rushers, to run the ball, while that athleticism is gone, he's supplemented that the same way that Jordan did, where it was more he was getting shots and post-ups. He was getting rid of the ball using his mind more than his body. Aaron Rodgers still has the ability to sling it. Make no mistake. He still gets rid of the ball fast. His ability to manipulate defenses puts him at a different level. We can't compare Josh's physicality to Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is just not that guy anymore. But we can compare Aaron Rodgers' mental IQ, his understanding of what a defense is trying to do, to anybody that's played before. Aaron Rodgers is still that dude. And he has better weapons, like we've discussed in the show. He's got a potentially fantastic offensive line around him, and he's got a Super Bowl caliber defense, which for a quarterback who I think has the lowest interception percentage in the history of the game, or like top 3 lowest interception percentages in the game, he basically, on some games where he has to, can just be a game manager. And if he runs up the score on a couple of these bad teams, and we looked at the schedule on the AFC show, we've got some bad teams coming up. Those stats at the end of the year, this might be 10-9 in the other side. That said, I'll settle for a 10-9 for the Bills.
All right. I know that was a tough one for Jake. I will say this, Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago was 8-9. He had one of his worst years of his professional career. He had a
4 rookie receivers, an offensive line that was bruised and battered, no running game whatsoever, and a broken thumb.
I love it, but you just said he gets rid of the ball quick and he can make any team better.
What did he do the year before that, Mike? He had a good year. What did he do the year before that? Without the broken thumb, with Devontae Adams, again an MVP.
I hear a lot of excuses, Anthony.
There are no excuses. I'm establishing context here.
He says he lifts his team. 8-9. Worst year ever. 14 interceptions. 2.2 for interception rate. His second worst ever. And it was the only one that he had that was worse than that was his first time he ever started in a full year. So let's be real a little bit.
And four rookie receivers.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have one rookie receiver this year. All right. So you had 4 a couple years ago. But we'll see. So 10-9 round. I agree with that. You could have argued even more, Jake, in my opinion. But again, you can look at all the accolades from years past. Oh, you can throw, because I know this is going to happen in the Ravens.
It's hard. It's getting in the way a lot.
They're going to be like, oh, you're going to drop some MVPs on us. Okay, what has those really gotten you? As far as the Ravens go when we have that battle. But anyhow, 10-9 goes to that. And this is for the Bills. This is a round that I think that PFF wishes they could grade, but they can't. And I want you to use that Nathaniel Hackett comment that DK used a little while ago during this discussion, Jake, because he basically said, he's finally discovered that he could throw to Breece Hall midway through the season or whenever that was. But the last and final round is the coaching battle. And I forget who I started this off with. I started this off with Jake last one. So this one goes to Anthony to start off. Is it DK? All right, DK. You get to take us on the coaching battle. Round 10, final round. Let's go.
All right. This will probably be one we have to take on the chin, right? I think when you look at, there's always that verbiage thrown out there of, glorified coordinator, right? When you look at certain head coaches that haven't performed the way you'd expect a head coach to, as like a CEO style, I think that definitely matches Robert Saleh. With that said, that means I would consider him one of the top 2-3 head coaches that just try to stick to the defensive side of the football in the NFL. You've seen him take any number of, high round draft picks to UDFAs, late round guys we picked up off the waivers, trade guys that nobody thought would turn into anything. And we've turned them into arguably top players at their positions. At the worst, key role players like Bryce Huff that went out there and earned huge contracts and different things of that nature. And then when you go down into the list, the lesser known battles, right? I think we have one of the better cornerback coaches in the NFL. I like what our safety group has been able to do. Pretty much anybody on the defensive side of the ball, golden. The hard part, the offensive side, Nathaniel Hackett, I've tried to make a lot of reasons for why he could be a good OC when I look back at his time with the Jaguars and him turning Blake Bortles into somebody that looked like he could be worthy of the number one pick that was used on him. That fell through, but he did good with Leonard Fournette. There's been a number of other opportunities he's had. Todd Downing, he looked like he could have been a quarterback whisperer via his time with having Derek Carr early on in his career. Huge credits to him and what he did, turning Ryan Tannehill around. And then Keith Carter is a guy that even in our own community, there's a lot of debate over, but I love him as an O-line coach. I think he got a bad hand last year with tons of injuries. But when you look at what he turned that Titans offensive line into, they were a dominant force regardless of if Derrick Henry was going to be there or not. So you bring in Sean Jefferson for the wide receivers. You bring in Tony Dews from the Titans as well. And his history of what he's been able to do with Derrick Henry and some of the guys he's rotated in since then. I still think I have to give it to the Bills. Sean McDermott has found a way to find the right offensive coaches to help support him and help develop his acumen on that side. And I think the results speak for themselves. Consistent AFC championship. So I will unfortunately have to say this is probably a knockdown, a 10-8 victory for the Bills.
All right. So I appreciate you going deep in the coaching staff, DK.
I love that.
Typically when we talk about this, we stay with the coach, OC, and DC, but you went deep, and I think you had to go deep to try to even give yourself a battle here. But I don't know. I'm just saying. But Jake, you're next up. He's already conceded a 10-8 round.
Yeah.
But talk about our coaching staff and, talk to us.
I mean, Sean McDermott's totally changed the culture here in Buffalo. And I think people are tired of hearing this, well, he broke the drought and he's getting us in position. He's getting us a ticket to the dance, right? But then again, statistics do not lie. 73-41, Robert Saleh, he ain't that. Okay. So right away, you compare the head coaches. I think Sean McDermott outdoes Robert Saleh by a lot. And I know there are times where even Sean McDermott makes some dumb decisions and dumb moves. But as a defensive-minded guy, too, in Robert Saleh, that's who he is as well. I mean, Sean McDermott was like an under-the-radar DC. He did great things in Carolina, came up through the Jim Johnson system there in Philly. And, he's done a lot of great things with our defensive players, specifically with those guys that we drafted on day 3. We talked about Taron Johnson, Matt Milano. The list goes on and on and on. And I think he had a really big hand in actually helping those guys become the players that they are today. So that alone, I think, speaks volumes. I know the players love him. And yeah, I think that's Sean McDermott all day. When you go to the offensive coordinators, Nate Hackett versus Joe Brady. Joe Brady's younger. I think he's a little more innovative. Nathaniel Hackett was also an offensive coordinator here in Buffalo, and he just doesn't excite me, man. I think he's there specifically because Aaron Rodgers handpicked him and he wants him to be there, and that's why he's there. I'm not saying he's a horrendous coach or anything like that, but I just feel better with Joe Brady as my OC than I do as probably where you guys are at with Nate Hackett. DC, Jeff Ulbrich. I like that guy a lot. Played some years in the NFL. Wears a backwards hat. Looks incredible there on the sidelines, right? But it's going to be interesting this year because we don't really know who's going to be calling our defensive plays, whether it's going to be Sean McDermott or Bobby Babich, the newly appointed defensive coordinator. Last year, Sean McDermott took over the DC job and basically was doing two things, right? Head coach and defensive coordinator. So I'm going to give you the DC position just because a little more experience there, obviously. But Bobby Babich, as a position coach, has been phenomenal here. So I'm super excited to see what he can do with this defense. I know he's probably playing within a line of what he can do, but still, I like that Sean McDermott is just going to be the head coach of this football team, and hopefully he will not have to be calling defensive plays and all that good stuff. Then really where I think you guys might win here too is special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer. Love that guy. Another dude that played in the league. We have Matthew Smiley, who I think his head's been called for several times. Lost us that opening game against you guys. There were a couple other things that happened throughout the year where people are just like, we got to fire the special teams coordinator because the special teams unit did not produce last year. But overall, I think based on Sean McDermott's record, what he's actually been able to do here in Buffalo, I'm going to call this a 10-8 round.
All right. And that concludes the Gridiron Battle between the Bills and the Jets. Now, while I am adding up the scorecards here, there was a couple questions that came in, Jake, and maybe you can answer Bills Mafia Su. He said, "Hey guys, who are they going to double now in Buffalo's offense? Is there anyone?" Like,
good question.
Let me bring it up here.
Yeah.
Josh's #1 quarterback in the division. Hey guys, who are they going to double now in Buffalo's offense?
There's a lot of what ifs at the receiver position. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be the focal point, and Anthony made a good point. It's going to be a lot of underneath stuff. I think there will be a lot of pre-snap motion as well, and we'll see some gadget plays too with Curtis Samuel. But really, outside of maybe Dalton Kincaid, we don't have, and maybe Dawson Knox too, you could throw in the loop there. We don't really have a proven receiver on the offensive side of the ball. So it's going to be interesting, man. And actually, it kind of excites me a little bit because we knew last year Steph was going to be doubled all the time, right? And it happened. And you guys notoriously would just bracket Stephon Diggs whenever we would play against the New York Jets. So I think that definitely leaves a lot of room for opportunity. It leaves a chance for, a different player to step up every game. And we might not have a 1,000-yard receiver. It could be, Curtis Samuel leading the team with 800 yards and then a mix of 500-yard receivers and then Dalton Kincaid having 1,300, like I said. So it could look a lot like the Kansas City Chiefs offense is what I'm trying to say, based on the statistics and how they align. So I think Josh will still put up his numbers, but the way he gets there, it'll be a little bit different. I also think a focal point is going to be running the football. So James Cook, obviously, there's going to be eyes on him a lot too. And we can run him on wheel routes and do a lot of cool things with him. So I'm encouraged. I still think this team has a lot of firepower on the offensive side of the ball. It's just going to look a lot different.
Gotcha. All right. He's saying, stop it, Jake. It's a mystery, and our offense is going to flourish because of it.
There we go. I love that. Yeah.
All right. Anthony, I know you're pressed for time. You got 5 more minutes. We're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, no, I'm good on time. I'm not pressed.
Oh, okay.
DK.
Is it DK you had to?
Yes.
Okay. 5 more minutes. You're good, sir?
Yep.
All right. So let's wrap this thing up. Appreciate everyone out in the channel. Once again, if you're new, please like, comment, and drop a nickel on that subscribe button. We'd love to see you in future shows. So let's get to it. Just recapping you guys' battle, the scorecard for you. First round, D-line, Jets came out with a 10-9 win. Second round, linebacker, Jets 10-9 again. Cornerback, third round, knocked down, 10-8 for the Jets. Safeties, the Bills got on the board with a 10-9 round. Then on the O-line, the Jets, again, come back with a 10-9 round. Tight end, knockdown for the Bills, 10-8 round. Wide receiver was a knockdown for the Jets. I mean, lots of knockdowns. Bam. Man, I'm surprised these people even got back on their feet. 10-8 for the Jets in that one. And then we go to the running back room, which was a 10-9 win for the Jets. Quarterback room, 10-9 for the Bills. Coaching, 10-8. So your scorecard, 94-92 for the New York Jets.
Ooh,
all right.
baby.
But it just goes to show you, I mean, these teams, like when I first looked a couple of weeks ago, or actually last week, I'm like, man, I'm hearing all this stuff about the Jets. I looked at the PFF stuff and I'm like, oh boy, this could be like every round could go to the Jets.
Thought it would be a lot uglier, I gotta say.
It's interesting because I still have you guys as like the division leads right now.
Yeah. So let's go to PFF. Now, PFF had it slightly different. They agreed with you on the defensive line. No, they disagreed. They gave the Bills 10-9. Remember, they used starters. You guys talked about depth, but you go look at your defensive line, the average score.
They gave the Bills
10-9.
Do they have Reddick listed as a linebacker, and do they still think that Von Miller's like a viable player?
Nope, Von Miller's not even part of this equation, guys. I will tell you who I used for your defensive line: Quinnen Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Jermaine Johnson, and Hassan Reddick. They went against Ed Oliver, Daquan Jones, AJ Epinesa, Gregory Rousseau. For an average for the Bills, 77.85. For average for the Jets, 75.1. So,
wow.
Huh. There you go.
Who's dragging it down?
That's
Kinlaw?
insane.
Yeah, it was Kinlaw.
Kinlaw
was terrible as far as PFF goes.
It's because he's a borderline. Yeah, he's barely a starter.
Yeah. Remember, PFF's a tool, but I think there's a good tool to use in these type of debates here. The Jets in the linebacker, PFF scored a knockdown for the Jets, 10-8. I mean, those Jets linebackers are next level.
Good.
Even with Matt Milano coming back, we don't know what version we're going to get of him. And Terrell Bernard, you would assume he's going to continue to ascend. But like you guys talked about, your linebackers are, some of the best, two of the best in the league. The Jets came back and won the cornerback room 10-9, not 10-8. And I'll tell you why. PFF, this was a close one. This was let me give you the average on those two there. So in the cornerback room, this is why the PFF, again, he remains anonymous, but he was just screaming his head off. The average score in the cornerback room for the Jets was 82.3. For the Bills, it was 80.5. Wow. Very close. Very close. So let's continue on here. For the safeties, you guys gave it to the Bills. PFF gave it to the Jets, 10-9. And basically what I did there, I know your guy, who was the guy that was out last year? Was it Clark?
Chuck Clark. Yeah.
Clark. So what I did is I averaged his previous 3 years to get his PFF score. And if there was a rookie, like in the wide receiver rooms, when we get there, both of us are going to be starting a wide receiver this year. And what I did is I said, all right, well, for us, we drafted ours in the second round. So give me 4 second rounders that were drafted in 2023 and give me their average score. And for you guys, you drafted your guy in the third round. I said, give me 4 guys from 2023 that were drafted in the third round. I took their averages and put them into the mix there. So that's how I got to the wide receivers. Tight ends was also and you guys had it as a knockdown. PFF said it was a 10-9. It was extremely close. Dawson Knox PFF score last year was pretty rough, even though I agree with all that you said. But PFF said it was a 10-9. This is going to be
people give him credit for it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Conklin's a lot better than people give him credit for.
Good player.
Functionally, he's at the very least an average tight end in the league, which is like more than I think he ever gets credit for. I think people look at him and they're just like, that guy who? And then Rucker, actually phenomenal run blocker. They deployed him towards the end of last year until he got hurt as in the backfield. He sprung 2 or 3 of Breece Hall's longest runs. He's a fantastic blocker. And he was coming out of college. He hasn't been tasked with catching the ball.
Yeah. So shocker. Wide receiver room. PFF gives the Bills the win 10-9. And I'll give you the reason. Again, remember they're using grades. And let's go to that real quick so I can show you who I use for you guys.
That's wild.
Let me go down here. So Malachi Corley. Obviously, you had Lazard there was listed on one of the things. I said there's no way they're starting Lazard when they just got this guy. And what I did is I took his average, like I already told you, 2023, gave me all the third rounders, and I took their average score. For them, that came to a 66.7 average. You had Mike Williams, who was a 74.6, and then you had Garrett Wilson, who was a 72.9 PFF score. Thank you so much, James.
James, thank you, sir. We really appreciate that, man.
We really do.
Thank you.
On the Bills side, Khalil Shakir, up and coming. He's ascending. 76.7 PFF score last year. Curtis Samuel, 69.7. And then Keon Coleman. Again, I had to take the averages. So for the second round wide receivers that were taken in 2023, their average was 69. So this was extremely close. The Bills average was 71.8. And the Jets were 71.4. Extremely close, guys.
Wow.
I'm at a 10-9, though. That seems like a 10-10 to me.
No. 10-10 would be even. Sorry.
It was 71 to 71. They were like decimal points before it separated.
10-10 rounds are extremely frowned upon
you
in
can't
boxing,
do it, right? Yeah.
And PFF says, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to give you the winner. So, interesting. Then over here in the running back room, they agreed with you guys 10-9. Quarterback room, they agreed with you 10-9. And on the coaching, they can't score coaching. So with the decision from PFF, it was a 94-96 in favor of the Jets. So a unanimous decision in the Gridiron Battle, with the Jets scoring overall 190 and the Bills 186. Now, I will say this. PFF said, here's some notes. I want you to mention these notes real quick. He said, if being better on paper, which right now the Jets are better on paper, if being better on paper guarantees you a championship, ask the Ravens, Eagles, and 49ers if they believe it. Because if you looked at the teams last year, the Chiefs against the Ravens on paper, 49ers on paper, there was no way that the Chiefs were going to beat those teams. He also said Jets 7-10 in 2023, 7-10 2022, 4-13 2021, 2-14. Now they're moving up 2-4, 7-7. Now we're going to go to a 12-14. Haven't been remotely relevant since 2015 when there were 10-6 with Fitzpatrick and Geno Smith behind center. Yet we're kept in the playoffs by losing to the Bills in the final week of the season. Last time the Jets made the playoffs was back in 2010, making the AFC Championship with Mark Sanchez at quarterback.
Crazy. Yeah.
I've only won, like I said, I've only won more than 9 games once in the past 13 years. To steal a line from our good friend Keith from the AFC East Summit Show, the Bills are kings in the AFC until you prove otherwise. But for this round, kudos to the Jets. Great battle, guys. I'd have to agree. I mean, just looking at things when I was prepping, I knew this was going to go this way, but it just was a lot closer than I thought after I got into things. You could have argued a few points here and there either way, but it was still going to be the Jets. But again, until they are able to dethrone the Bills, it's the Bills' division to lose. But good stuff, Anthony. Good stuff, DK. Great stuff, Jake. And let's see. And again, the channel. Let's see here. Bills Mafia. I'm gonna have a time saying that. But I better
Bills
get used
Mafioso.
to it, I believe he's going to
that.
be back here many times. Bills Mafioso. So best running back room in the division. Also watch and wait. So Anthony, everyone can see you on the AFC East Summit every Tuesday with Jake and Keith, and hopefully Chris returns at 5.
Just moved to a new time. We're at 7:30 instead of 8.
7:30. 7:30.
These guys bring you some of the best content on the AFC East that I've seen. But closing thoughts for you, Anthony. And I know you said I misquoted you, and that's true, but I'm going to use the old man's card. I'm old man. I'll even use the chemo brain. Had to go through cancer in 2016, so I'm dropping the chemo brain. Forget a lot of things from a year ago.
You're going to make them feel real bad.
So you can't fight that one. But hey, you bring a lot of great stuff. You do a lot of deep analysis, and really appreciate you on the summit. So closing thoughts for you, sir.
I mean, obviously, these two teams are two of the best teams, I think, in the AFC. I think these are two of the top 10 teams in football, both sides, largely with the Bills because they have a great defensive head coach who can coach up some of the younger talent. And I've said this, like I've said before, Josh Allen is a Hall of Fame player in the middle of his prime, and you can't ever count out that caliber of player. I do think we have a complete roster. I think we have the most complete roster that we've had maybe in my lifetime as a Jets fan, which is depressing to say, but also true. I'm excited to see the season get started. It's this offseason is starting to drag for me. So I want to see more than just camp highlights, wide receivers against no cornerbacks, quarterbacks thrown open air. I want to see hats on hats. So I'm excited to see this Bills roster. I'm excited to see this Jets roster. I'm excited to get football going now.
I hear you. DK, hopefully you're still there. Closing thoughts for you. Again, thank you for joining us tonight, giving us a slightly different perspective, but I think you and Anthony were pretty much in sync, and you're expecting big things from this team this year. But closing thoughts from you, and tell the folks where they can find you and what you have in store for your channel.
Yeah, appreciate the invite once again. I know I got a couple, to join the AFC East Summit. Is always fun talking to you guys. I think it's going to be as close to an even-keeled match in the AFC East as we've seen in quite some time, right? So I'm just thrilled for that. I'm more so looking at the division race than anything else. I think much like we did with this analysis here, there is small margins of victories for these teams. And I think ultimately it will be the coaching staffs that really separate a lot of stuff here. But I'm just looking forward for the battles, and we'll see who ultimately has the depth to pull things off. As for finding me, I don't really do too much social media. I know it's weird to have a sports channel and not have stuff everywhere, but people can usually just find me on YouTube, DKBX Jets. I think I have an Instagram that's out there, but I don't really use it for anything. So if you find me, I'll probably accept you, but don't expect really anything there. But appreciate you guys once again. This was really, really fun and unique. I haven't done anything like this for anything sports related, actually.
Well, like I said earlier in the show, down on our homepage, you'll see a section that says Awesome Channels. DKB right there. You can just subscribe to him. Go check him out. Does some great content for the Jets. And thanks again for joining us tonight. Mr. Podger, I don't know if you're going to get a lot of heat tomorrow on the rewatch from some certain folks. But I think most people would agree with what the outcome was here. But it's going to be interesting on what we hear. But your closing thoughts, sir.
Yeah, this is it's a really good exercise, and I think it's fun. It keeps our minds off of just the just want for the season to start. Anthony worded it well. It's starting to drag, man. Like I'm cooked without football right now. I mean, there's a lot of great things going on in my life. Don't get me wrong, but like, man, I need this back in my life. Like now, I just love it. I live, I breathe it, and it's tough just watching reruns of Larry Center's highlights every single night. It's like I've been watching NFL Throwback. I've resorted to that. I'm watching I literally just watched a video of the leading passers from every single season from 1970 onwards. So that's what I'm doing right now to fill my time when I have off time. Of course, I'm a busy guy. I like to do a lot of stuff during the day, but listen, football's in my life. It's just a better time, plain and simple.
Yeah. Well, good stuff there, Jake. Thanks again for being on here. And then, so next week, so let's just talk about the Nickel City Mafia network here. Again, we already talked about the AFC East Summit, which goes live every Tuesday. Great bunch of guys bringing you some of the best content out there. We do have a rookie show coming up for fantasy football, probably in about 2 weeks. You got Chris and Jeremy returning for that. I know Anthony, who won our league last year, damn it. I was doing really well until the end, and I just think he was the one who knocked me out in the playoffs. But yeah, they're going to be doing a show, something you want to definitely catch if you're into fantasy football, which most of all you are. If you're into football, you probably are playing some form of fantasy football. They got you on all the different types of fantasy football. So check out that show. It's coming in a couple of weeks. We've got the the Sabres Edge. They're kind of on a break right now. They'll be coming back in a few weeks to talk, every so often about what's going on in hockey land. I think they're going to wait till after the Stanley Cup is over. By the way, some great hockey. If you're into basketball or hockey, oh my God, the playoffs are just insane. Anyone know who won that Mavericks game? Because I was watching it right until the show started.
I did not see. Yeah, I didn't see the end of that. I was watching some playoff hockey earlier. I know the Rangers pulled one off against the Panthers. That was pretty good. They went to OT. But I didn't catch the Mavs game. All
right. Well, I'm sure somebody will say here in a little bit. But and then we also got the Red, White, and Ruthless, which goes live every Saturday. They couldn't go live yesterday. Unfortunately, something happened with a family member of one of our friends. So they'll be returning in about a week. And our blessings go out to Sean and your family for your loss. All that said, thank you all again. Stay safe. Enjoy your Monday. Hopefully you're all
real
off
quick
tomorrow.
too.
Yep.
Yes, Memorial Day weekend.
Yep.
Just honoring everyone, that is passed on, of course, and the people that fight for our freedoms. Being able to do this show, right?
Absolutely, 100%. Wouldn't be able to do that without them. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Anthony, I gave him a